Hey Beatle people, how's everybody doing? So I wanted to take this time to do a response video to Beatle James's subject on being into the Beatles when no one else was. And I just thought that this was a really interesting topic. And I was born in 1989, so I basically grew up in the 90s. And the Beatles, of course, were still extremely popular. I don't think they've ever stopped being popular, but I think for Beatle fans, it just depends on what time, we grow up. If we weren't kids or teenagers in the mid-60s, our stories really vary. So being a child of the 90s, the Beatles were popular with adults, but of course not with kids my age. I think I must have been the only 4-year-old around, in circa 93, 94, singing Beatles songs. And this is probably why I get along with people that are, 20 or 30 years older than me. One memory, oh, lovely. One memory that really sticks out at me was when I was around 7 or 8 years old, and I had a neighbor who lived across the street from me, and I think my family, we were going into the car, we were like leaving to go somewhere, and my neighbor saw me and screamed my name, "Hey, Caitlin," and just kind of like trying to taunt me by singing the lyrics of "She Loves You." And I remember just thinking, well, yeah, you know what? She does love you. Great, awesome. Yeah, pop music in the 90s really consisted of that teeny bopper, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Spice Girls kind of stuff. And of course, hip hop was really popular. So being a kid in that time and listening to the Beatles, it's like, oh, you're listening to stuff that my grandparents listened to, or, stuff my parents listened to. It really, for younger kids, seemed so old. I remember even once I was on a field trip when I was in the 5th grade, and our teacher was like, "Oh, this is going to be a long bus ride." We were taking a coach bus. "If you have any videotapes that you want to bring in, we'll play them for the ride." And I was like, I'm going to bring Yellow Submarine. And all of my friends are going to love it, and they're going to love the songs, and they're finally going to realize why I love the Beatles so much. And so I remember the teacher pops it in, and this was after another movie had just finished, which everyone stayed quiet for and paid attention to. And we popped in Yellow Submarine, and not a single one of my classmates gave a shit. They were just talking and being rude through the movie, so much so we didn't even get through the first 10 minutes, and my teacher turned it off. I remember that really upsetting me because I really wanted to watch Yellow Submarine. I remember it starting to become a little bit more socially acceptable when Beatles I came out. I remember having a couple of kids in my class going, "Oh, I got that CD, it's really good." Or, their parents had it on and they seemed to enjoy it. So it was really cool that it was finally like, oh, I have somebody I can talk to about these things, even though they're like basic fans and just knew the hits, where at that time, being 11, I was already, a seasoned Beatles fan and, knew the deep tracks and all the other songs. I just always wanted my friends to understand my love of the Beatles. When they would tell me about certain music that, they would listen to, I would always try and be like, well, the Beatles, influenced so-and-so, or the Beatles did this first. And I remember it was really when I was in high school and, CD burners became popular, where I would burn copies of Abbey Road, and I always gave it to my friends with specific instructions where they had to have the allotted time to listen to the whole thing without any interruptions, and they had to listen to it with headphones. And there were a few friends that actually, got into it and got into the Beatles because I gave them Abbey Road to listen to first. I guess that's kind of the album that, you know, it's not too bubblegum. It's not considered oldies. When you listen to Abbey Road, it's like you're listening to something that somebody just came out with this year. It's still really relevant. It really wasn't until I was in college and I met other young musicians that I hung out with, where I met kids that loved the Beatles on the same level as I did. So in a way, I feel bad for kids today who might be 5, 6, 7 years old and love the Beatles because of their parents or their grandparents or any other family member, and getting made fun of in a world full of Rihanna's, Beyonce's, and Ed Sheeran's and Shawn Mendes's. But where would those guys be without the huge array of influence from the Beatles? So I guess this will be something that'll never end. It will always be unpopular for someone to like the Beatles, unless you were actually there in the 60s in Beatlemania. So there you have it, guys. My 2 cents. What do you guys think? Make a video, make a response, because I would love to hear what you all think. Just want to thank you all for watching, and to my new subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing, and to my old ones, thanks for sticking around. If you don't already, please like my Facebook fan page, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Caitlin Larkin. And as always, guys, until next time, peace and love. See ya.